Well, good evening, members. Welcome along to this Joint Transportation Board meeting. Before I open the meeting, can I please ask any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device to mute it, please, to avoid feedback. And ask any remote participants, please keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak, and ideally not to use the camera facility, as this can affect the quality of the IT. The meeting will be recorded, and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptops to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile or tablet device, it's not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. Please can I ask members to speak loudly and clearly into their microphones and to switch off their microphones after speaking, otherwise remote participants may be unable to hear the next speaker. So welcome everyone to this hybrid Swale Joint Transportation Board meeting, including any members of the public. Advise that the following staff are in attendance in the chamber or remotely. Swale District Manager KCC Alan Blackburn, Seafront and Engineering Manager Mike Knowles, Project Manager Major Capital Programmes KCC Richard Shelton, Kent Active Travel Infrastructure Team Sebastian Burrs, Project Manager National Highways Daniel Rollison, and Democratic Services Philippa Davis. Are there any other officers in attendance that have not already been named? Sorry. Adrian Oliver, thank you. Brain fade. Sorry, Adrian. They were just speaking about you just now. Oh, oh good. Okay. There is no planned fire drill this evening, so if the alarm sounds, those in attendance should leave via the fire exits, either to my right or back in the foyer. You came up, please don't use the lifts. And is there anyone in attendance that may need assistance to leave the building? Okay. Could I have any apologies for absence and substitutes, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Paul Stephen, and just to advise that there are KCC councillors attending remotely are Councillor Mike Baldock, Councillor Anthony Hook and Councillor Mike Whiting, and also SBC Councillor Elliot Jays. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippa. Councillor Gould, please.
Can we have apologies from Councillor Lehman as well?
Thank you. Right, can I ask members to agree the minutes of the meeting held on 2nd of October, minutes 331 to 342 as a correct record?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. And are there any declarations of interest on any of the agenda items for this evening's meeting? Thank you. So item 5, public session. I do have a member of the public wishing to speak on agenda item number 6. I can find it. This is a formal objection to Traffic Regulation Order Amendment number 50. Before I call in the public speaker who is attending online remotely, I will ask Mike Knowles to present the report. I must advise members that this part of the agenda, part one, is reports for recommendation to Swale Borough Council's Policy and Resources Committee. So over to you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there's no changes to the published report. This is basically in response to a traffic regulation order, which Swale were asked to draft on behalf of the developer for the new estate, which was Abbey Homes. The estate isn't yet adopted highway, and as such, we were approached by the developer via KCC initially to draft an order for double yellow lines along one side of Redgrove Avenue and of the junctions leading off of Redgrove Avenue. This was to tackle issues with all-day commuter parking and issues around vehicles obstructing the safe passage of traffic along the road. In response to the objections that we received, there were three initially, I believe, we discussed it with the developer, and a proposed scheme was put forward for a combination of single yellow lines with a 1 hour restriction Monday to Friday, 10 till 11 a.m, and some corner protection in the form of double yellow lines to address the problem with commuter parking, but to minimise the impact on residents. And that's the proposal that is in the recommendation tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Before I call in Mr. Sam Martin, I just need to get members' correction. I read out from my papers that the minutes were the minutes of the 2nd of October. I apologise, members. I should have said the minutes of the meeting of Monday, the 4th of December. Right, so, Mr. Martin, I'd like to call you in to speak on this agenda item. You will have 3 minutes and you'll get a reminder when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Hello, good evening. So I asked to speak because I was awaiting some responses by email on information about this. Was looking to find out a bit more about what you were planning as the council for this, and that's why I'd asked to speak, because I noted the deadline. I think if you're planning to proceed as the report with single yellow lines, then I think that is likely to ameliorate the problems. The information I was requesting was around the fact that I note that all three objectors asked about a residence parking option, and that your report didn't seem to reference that as an alternative option considered. I've had further information about that, and I understand that it was fully considered. Doesn't seem to detail the discussions and debates that was had around that, but I understand that that was considered.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Mr. Martin's absolutely correct. The option of looking into a residence parking scheme was discussed with the developer as part of the post-consultation discussion that we had. The conclusion that we came to through the developer was that because the estate does provide one parking space per property, it was felt that the appetite for a residence parking scheme would be minimal, taking into account the annual permit charge, and the developer was of the view that the new estate didn't lend itself to accommodating a large number of formalised on-street parking spaces. So in terms of a residence parking scheme, there would be a very limited number of spaces. But obviously, there is a future option should residents wish to pursue a residence parking scheme. they can go down that route of submitting a petition, which would obviously come to this board for further consideration. But yes, just to clarify that we did fully go through the options and the suggestions that were made by the formal consultees during the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knowles. Right, I open up the debate to members. Any comments, questions, members? No, so I will move straight to vote on the recommendation that members are asked to note the formal objections received to Traffic Regulation Order 50 and to recommend that the proposed revised design of double and single yellow lines be progressed. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, members. So that is agenda item 6. We move on now to agenda item 7. Formal objections to Traffic Regulation Order Swale Amendment number 52. Again, that's yourself, Mr. Knowles, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. This traffic regulation order is slightly different to our normal orders in so much that this order just covers the formalising of existing various disabled parking bays around the borough. This has come as a request from Kent County Council to all district councils to look at all of their existing parking bays which are in place for disabled and blue badge holders, to formalise those bays so they are all included in a traffic regulation order, as opposed to some that we have at the moment which are currently advisory bays, so not legally enforceable. There are a very large number in the borough, and this is the first of several orders which we will be progressing to bring all of those current bays under the consolidation order and to all be enforceable. And as part of this process, there'll be several bays as well that we will be looking to delete, which are now obsolete. And this traffic order is off the back of that first round. So we received 3 formal objections, and they were mainly around a confusion that the traffic order was going to consist of installing new disabled bays, and these were particularly in roads where there was limited parking capacity. We agreed that that wasn't the case, and it would just be a case of formalising existing bays, and as a result the objections were reduced to just one, which is shown in the report, and that's for a disabled person's parking bay in South Avenue in Sittingbourne. Thank you.
Knowles. Councillor Gould.
Will the council be having to pay for all these traffic regulation orders? It sounds like there's going to be a lot of them coming through.
No, they won't be paying for that. I believe there will probably be 3 to 4 traffic orders in total, but they are very large orders. But at the moment, there has been no discussion or agreement from the county council that they will be funding that traffic order process. Thank you.
Yeah. And I note on page 23 the objection to the bay outside 14 South Avenue. I believe there are 2 bays in the vicinity there, so is it just the one that's being made formal and the other one will be deleted?
Thank you, Chair. At this stage, there is one bay which is going into the traffic regulation order, which is existing. There is a bay further along in South Avenue, which is currently advisory, but that will be picked up in a later traffic order with a view to formalising that as well. Thank you.
I have Councillor MacDonald first, please.
Yeah, so just declaring an interest that I am a blue badge holder. Obviously, I don't have any parking bays or anything, and don't need one. But obviously, I'm allowed to park in a empty disabled bay, so I really ought to declare an interest.
Okay, thank you, Councillor MacDonald. I don't believe that would preclude you from taking part in the debate or voting on this. I have Councillor Watson next, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is actually in my ward, South Avenue, and I visited South Avenue last weekend. It is notorious, South Avenue, for issues around parking, but I think that obviously everyone is entitled to object. Saying that they should share a bay, I think, is just totally impractical. So I would go with formalising this disabled person's bay, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I have Councillor Tutt next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask for some clarification from Mr Knowles? When you said about KCC, I believe the way you worded it was that KCC wouldn't be paying for them. Does that mean Swale will be? That's the start, if you like.
Yes, just to confirm that the whole disabled bay process is undertaken on behalf of Kent County Council by the Borough Council, but the costs for the traffic order will be met by the Borough Council as opposed to the County Council.
Chair, I do have a hand up.
Oh, beg pardon?
Lovely.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Tutt, come back first.
Thank you. It was just to ask then, in which case, what are Swale going to be asked to pay? Because we know there's going to be a lot of these, and I don't see how it should come back to Swale when it's a KCC traffic order.
In terms of costs, the costs that Swale will incur are the costs of advertising the traffic order, which in terms of local newspapers is approximately £60 per traffic order. So, but it's advertised once as a proposed and once as a completed order. So that's roughly £120. And obviously the other costs incurred of that would be officer time in preparing the traffic order. Thank you.
Councillor Wright, please.
I didn't know whether I caught it or not. Did the objector respond to your last response to?
No, they didn't. No.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I can see, nothing's changing. I've got no problem with it.
Okay. Councillor Baldock, online, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have a problem with KCC just asking us to do work and then us having to pay for it. And Mr Knowles says it's only a limited amount, but we have had to pay £3,000 if we want to do it as members. KCC can just dump this. I don't think we should be paying. You know, if KCC want work done, they can pay for it, given what they've taken off of us lately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. I mean, we do have two KCC members in the room and also yourself online, Councillor Baldock. Perhaps this is something that they could take back to their KCC colleagues on behalf of this committee and press for KCC to meet possibly some or all of the costs, seeing as we're doing it on their behalf.
Or we could just refuse to do it, unless they pay.
Well, I don't believe that would be an option, but I'll leave this one in the capable hands of our KCC colleagues. I see no other hands at the moment. I don't know if you heard that, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Wright suggested that as you made the suggestion, it might be something you'd like to take up with the officers at KC and the cabinet member at KCC.
I'll be taking it up with our leader and then the cabinet member, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Palmer.
I was going to perhaps propose that the chair of JTB, on behalf of the committee here, puts a letter into the cabinet member at KCC saying, why is Swale paying for this? And what are they going to do about it? And if there's a joint approach, then it might have more of a benefit. But I would recommend or like to propose that you as the chair have a letter sent to the cabinet member at KCC, if everyone is agreeable to that, showing that we are concerned that we're picking up the bill for KCC. I don't know if it was a recommendation by someone at KCC, but it seems to be that they seem to recommend and expect Swale to pick up the tab. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Members, Councillor Harrison.
Okay. Back in the annals of this brain, wasn't there something about a change in the legislation and every disabled bay, I'm not talking about the WO lines, every disabled bay that we've put in over the past however long were deemed to be advisory and therefore could not be enforced. So in light of the change in the, I don't know, regs, we had to go through this process. Mr. Knowles will fill in the gaps, but I thought there was something like that came up, which if we're the ones that will get it in the neck because it's our civil enforcement people that enforce this type of thing, is it not? And they won't be able to enforce it if it is simply advisory. So all the disabled bays that we have agreed over the past however many months, years, just a bit of paint on the road.
Councillor Gould, did you want to? Mr. Knowles.
Yes, the situation is with what we refer to as an advisory bay. Is basically, as you say, a road marking outside of a person's property with the word disabled in it. The idea behind an advisory bay was when we receive a request from a blue badge holder for a bay to go in many cases there is, it's time sensitive because that person may have an illness which would shorten their remaining years, to put it bluntly. So as a result, we as a Borough Council have always tried to get those bays in as soon as possible to benefit the resident. If we go through the formal route of a traffic regulation order, the traffic order can take an average of around 12 months to complete, by which time, unfortunately, that resident may no longer have the benefit to use the bay. So you're absolutely right. The bays we would normally put in as advisory, and then if there are issues with non-blue badge holders parking in those bays, which obviously we can't enforce, we then include those in a subsequent order. So, but I'm not sure what's prompted the discussion from KCC's parking manager, but as I say, this is across Kent. This is with all the borough and district councils. I can only assume that there is a desire from KCC to have all of the bays formalised and in one order. But as I say, I'm not entirely sure what's driving that, but that's certainly something that I'm happy to take back to the KCC parking manager for further guidance as to why this decision has suddenly been made. But yes, that, just to provide a bit of background, that's the reason why we've gone down the route of advisory bays in the past, and then followed them up with the traffic regulation order if parking does become a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knowles. Councillor Tuck.
Thank you, Chair. It's still on this part about payment. Traffic regulation orders cost a lot of money to have drawn up and sealed. I know from my own parish that we put in a HIP against my better judgment because it was a safety issue, and I think KCC should be paying for it. But it cost us about £11,000 to get a few 30-mile-an-hour signs put up. And a lot of the money was the traffic regulation order that had to be sealed by county. So if each of these have got to be traffic regulation orders sealed by county, that's going to cost Swale an awful lot of money, and I don't think it's money they should be paying. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a proposal on the table which has been seconded. Members, is it your wish that I write to the Cabinet member at KCC to express our displeasure at the forcing of costs for these traffic regulation orders onto Swale Borough Council when indeed it is a KCC issue? I'll take that to the vote. Any against? Abstentions? 2. So that is carried. I will write to the Cabinet member at KCC. So is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this agenda item 7? So members are asked to note the formal objections received to traffic regulation order amendment number 52. And recommend that the disabled parking bays in South Avenue, Sittingbourne is formalised as advertised. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, members. So we now move on to agenda item number 8, a petition requesting residents parking scheme in Wellwinch Road, Sittingbourne. So again, this is you, I believe, Mr. Knowles.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my final report you'll be pleased to hear. This was in response to a petition that has been received from residents of Wellwinch Road in Sittingbourne for the introduction of a residents parking scheme to tackle problems with commuter parking in the road. We had a total of 29 signatures from residents in the area, and 21 of those signatures supported the introduction of a scheme. 2 objected, and 6 were neutral or did not respond to the petition. The recommendation is in the report is that we undertake an informal consultation both with the residents of Wellwinch Road but also the adjoining Regency Court and Victoria Road, because obviously there would be the issue of displacing vehicles into adjoining roads should we go down the route of introducing a residents parking scheme in Wellwinch Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knowles. Members? Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, I've had informal consultation in one of my areas that repeatedly asks, well, not repeatedly, every so many years, somebody new moves in and says, we want a parking scheme. When we've done the informal consultation and put in black and white, this is what it will cost and this is the hours it'll be, the people have backed off because I think a lot of residents think, oh, if we have a parking scheme, and then we can't have like the vans, yes, for commuters, but we won't have people fetching their vans on and parking. Well, it's knocked on the head at 6 o'clock at night. So if your problem is in the evenings, it ain't gonna help. And once people find out what it actually means, they lose interest. So I'm quite comfortable that it could be put on the forward plan of items to be dealt with for an informal consultation. I say on the forward plan because, to my knowledge, none of the Swale Borough Council staff are sitting twiddling their thumbs looking for work. They've all got a very heavy workload and this will have to be fitted in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Dendorf.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is my division, but like Councillor Harrison, I've had experience with this kind of thing before, and I totally agree with Mike or Mr Knowles's proposal to increase the consultation to go to the surrounding streets. We all know what will happen. The parking will be displaced, and we all know the problem will get worse in the streets around it. I think commuters do park down there, if I remember rightly, for the buses, but I stand to be corrected on that. But surely an informal consultation expanded into the surrounding area, I think, is the best way to go, so I'd agree with that.
Thank you, Councillor Dendor. Yeah, I agree with the extended consultation, but I have to agree also with Councillor Harrison. I think one of the problems is it's not so much, it is the commuters parking, but members who've been on this committee for some time will recall the last time we had a consultation in Park Road in my patch. It was all going swimmingly until, as Councillor Harrison said, the final consultation went out and the traffic order was advertised, and then a significant number of objectors came out of the woodwork, and whilst they were, yes, objecting to the scheme itself being extended to the top of Park Road and into Afton Lane, the problem that they were also noting was, as Councillor Harrison said, the scheme finishes at 6 o'clock. I have said in the past that I believe the scheme should run from 6 o'clock in the morning until midnight, 7 days a week. But obviously there is a cost to that. And I don't know, I was just going to come to you, Councillor Palmer, I don't know if that was something you were looking at on your committee within your parking review.
Well, that would be discussed on the 6th, and obviously the committee will make decisions, but no, not really. What are they trying to achieve? Because is it to stop commuters parking there? Because you don't need to do 6 till midnight to stop commuters. You might just need a short period of time with a permit between 8 and 9, or 9 and 10, or 7:30. So maybe what we're trying to achieve, or what the residents are saying, is we are swamped with commuters parking there, and yet everyone says opposite the train station is an empty car park, allegedly. So is it not, can't we think outside the box and say, well, maybe just an hour during the day, or an hour in the morning, that it's permit parking? Out of that, anyone can park there, because the commuters tend to be there before 9 o'clock, I would imagine. Thank you.
I will come to Mr Knowles in just a second, but in part answer to your question, possibly there is the issue that not only is the commuters parking there, but it's also maybe not in that particular area, but in other areas that are in my patch, people who live in residential parking don't want to pay the parking fees. They go and park elsewhere, and there you've got your displacement again. And also, evenings and weekends, people again who don't live in the area, they tend to park wherever they can. Again, displacement. But Mr Knowles.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in response, that's absolutely possible to introduce a 1 hour restriction or something similar, as discussed in one of the previous items, actually, on the new estate at Redgrove Avenue, where the developers asked for a 1 hour restriction between 10 and 11 a.m. In the form of a single yellow line, which obviously doesn't require a permit. I think there are pros and cons to the various options. I think probably the biggest issue with the 1 hour restriction is possibly that it would affect residents as well, and I think that's something that's sort of come out through some other consultations, because it does mean that residents would need to move their vehicles between that 1 hour restriction. But it does work in some areas. There are some areas of Faversham that have a 1 hour restriction on them as well. I know in the case of one particular area in Faversham, there was some appetite a while ago from the residents to remove that and put in a residents parking scheme or something similar, because of that issue around residents being affected as well. But if we were to look at that, an informal consultation at some point, that may be something we could put in the consultation to ask whether that would be a preferable option. But I think it's important during the consultation, as I think as has been touched on this evening, that residents are fully aware of what a residence parking scheme can and cannot do, and the costs involved, and the limitations with it, and the same with other options as well. But yeah, that's certainly something that could be looked at. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, I just want to get it clear in my head, which and I appreciate Mike Knowles putting it across like that. So you could have a 1 hour restriction and a parking permit. That just covers that 1 hour. And if the residents in an informal consultation are fully informed of that and the cost it might incur, then you might get the answer, or at least you get an informed answer, and it avoids the oversleeping and not moving your car and getting a ticket sort of thing. Thank you.
Yes, that's certainly an option. We would need to sort of look into the operational side of a 1 hour restriction on a permit, really because with the current residence parking scheme, there's an exemption, or there's a certain period of grace. In some areas it's 1 hour, some areas it's 2 hours for visitor parking. So we would need to obviously examine that, and also speak to our colleagues, our own parking manager, to see whether it's viable or possible from an operational point of view to enforce it as a 1 hour permit as opposed to a 1 hour single yellow line. But it's certainly a discussion that we can have. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I did put my hand up. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councillor Whiting. Yes, sorry, I didn't put my microphone on. Please come in.
Okay, I'm taking the point that Councillor Palmer made. I think it's a very good one. If we try, it depends what we're trying to do here, or what the residents want us to try to do. And if it's to try to stop commuters, there's plenty of other ways. I think with the hour limit or the 2 hour limit at some point during the day that would prevent the people parking there all day, but without the expense and to the residents of imposing a scheme, a residence parking scheme, which does come at an expense. It comes at an expense for their visitors, and many people would prefer not to have them, I know. So I think we need to look at other ways of skinning this particular cat if that's what the aim of the proposal actually is. And I'd certainly support a time limited ban sometime during the day to deter all day parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. I see no other hands up online or in the room, so I'll go back to the recommendation that members are asked to note the submitted petition and recommend that officers undertake an informal consultation with residents of Welwrinch Road, Regency Court and Victoria Road, Sittingbourne, on the possible introduction of a residence parking scheme in these roads, and also include the suggestions that have come and that Mr. Knowles has spoken about. Councillor Harrison, did you want to speak, or are you? I haven't called for a vote yet. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, members. So we now move over, and I'll advise that the third section of the agenda is part 2, items for noting. We now have a verbal update on the national highways on the M2 junction 5 at Stockbury. Would that be you, Daniel?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Just give a quick verbal update, and as always, I'll take any questions that anybody has. So, Since the turn of the year, we've kind of continued to deliver at pace as we enter into which is what essentially is the last sort of part of the scheme, really. Probably looking at maybe 4 solid months of construction left before the junction, or the new junction as it will be taking traffic. So anybody who's driven through will have seen that the retaining walls for the main flyover itself are now complete, and we're just completing sort of the top parts of the railings and the such like. And then obviously we've got the road layers to build up. Obviously, we currently are a week or so into the 5-week closure of both the westbound off slip, so the London-bound off slip from the M2, and the southbound carriageway from the Stockley roundabout to sort of the Churchill area. So that's basically allow us to complete the southern end of the scheme, where there's a lot of work there in quite a small area, including some new barriers, some really deep drainage works, reconstructions of the carriageway. We'll also be able to finish the South Green Link Road, so which will be sort of detrunked and allow a two-way flow of traffic from South Green Lane up to the Stockley roundabout. And obviously, like I said, we've tied that in with the westbound off slip as well. So we always needed a closure of the westbound off slip, and we decided we felt it would be best to tie it in with the southbound closure to kind of to try and keep as many vehicles off of the roundabout as possible, and kind of stick to our signed diversion route of Bluebell Hill. So that will also allow us to complete the works on the westbound off slip. So when we get out of the other side of this closure, which will be the Easter weekend, the westbound slip works will be finished. The work on the southern end of the scheme will be more or less finished. There will remain a lane closure in place when we reopen, but the new slip road from the roundabout onto the A249 southbound will be open and free flowing, albeit on one lane. And then from there, really, we're into the final throes of the scheme, really. So it'll just be some of the sort of smaller elements. So I think some the signage and landscaping and the such like and all that kind of stuff, really. But sort of by midsummer, we should be taking traffic on the flyover itself. But that's it, really, in a nutshell. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Lovely. Thank you, Daniel. Councillor Wright, please.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you very much for the update. I've got one question for you, but before I get to it, I just would like to say that since the lane closures, etc., and I know it's a KCC problem along with yourselves, the country lanes have been absolutely chock-a-block at rush hour times, with people running through the villages. The Lower Hartlett Road of a morning, if I look at it, it's a bit like the A2. It's a country lane. Last week, my neighbour had 2 cars go through his fence. One had to be picked up by a high-ab lorry. If you drive anywhere between the A2 and Grovehurst, farmers' fields and hedges have been demolished. I do hope that once all this work is completed, that Kent County Council will be reinstating farmers' fields and hedges and repairing the potholes. I had an email from a resident this week complaining about the state of the roads leading to the A249, asking that when it is done, that these roads are completely resurfaced and repaired properly, because the state of repair is appalling. And I have emailed Alan Blackburn that email this week. My question to you is, bearing in mind the accident that happened where somebody was killed the other day along the A249, can you tell me what the accident record around the traffic works that you've had since you've been there have been?
Yeah, so first, it's worth pointing out that the accident that obviously it was an awful accident that happened, but that was not in any way linked to our works. It happened in advance of our works and then kind of carried on into our sort of area. So it wasn't as a result, and there wasn't any interaction with any of our workforce, thankfully, obviously. Yeah, generally, I think well, in terms of our site, we've not had a single what we call a lost time incident on our site since we started. So that means not a single person working on our site has had a single day off work due to any kind of injury, which is an incredible achievement for a project of our size. Obviously, there's been a number of incidents running through the scheme, but that's just kind of general with the area itself. That was one of the main reasons why the scheme is being developed, is because of the poor safety record of the junction in general, and it has been for a number of years. And that's something that the scheme will address with the benefits that it delivers. So yeah, I mean, like it's kind of been, like I said, fairly consistent with what it was before we arrived. So you do have some incidents, and they kind of vary in their severity, really. But I wouldn't say that. I can't think of any off the top of my head that any direct result of any of the works we're actually doing. It tends to be drivers colliding or something like that, as opposed to anything to do with our works.
Would it be possible for the accident record to be provided to the committee? That's traffic accidents, etc.
Yeah, that's probably, it may be, because we obviously record accidents that are directly related to our works or anything that interacts with our work. So I'm not sure we would have a full record of any shunt bumps or any sort of accidents that just happened along the stretch of the 1849 between the two ends of our scheme. That might be a question for the local police, I would assume.
And I presume none of it has been down to loose cones and roadwork signage, etc., being in the wrong place, etc.
No, I mean we get reports of road signs that can be misleading. We always look at and address and respond to every single person that ever emails us, and we're quite dynamic with our traffic management, and we do proactively address that. We have sort of what we call drive-through audits, which are essentially secret shoppers that drive through as well, and point out and score us on our traffic management. So it's very dynamic. We do look at that. And we always have people that write into us and claim that they ran into a pothole or anything like that, or any debris on the road or anything. And if anything comes in like that, it goes through our legal claims team as well, and it goes through a very thorough process. And we have paid compensation for potholes, but nothing sort of related to serious accident related to cones or anything.
So you will be supplying the committee with that information. Thank you.
I can provide you any information related to any incidents. That's fine.
Lovely, thank you. I've got Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to ask a question as a listening-in member. It's very faint. I'm having a job to hear the signal, so I may have missed something. But it's just a quick question. Is the project basically on time to be completed by I take it the autumn winter of this year, or is it in advance? Because I've used the road quite regularly, and it does seem to be well under construction there, obviously. So is it on time, basically, the completion date?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who's seen the large signs that are open for traffic was always planned to be the winter of this year, so sort of towards the back end, November, December time. But like I said, by sort of midsummer, the new flyover and the road will be open for traffic. There's a slight nuance between the road taking traffic and us formally achieving what we call open for traffic with the Department for Transport, but that's mainly around sort of the paperwork side of things. But yeah, we are on schedule, and like I said, all being well, touch wood, the flyover should be, and all the slip roads should be open and fully mobile by midsummer.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dendor, please.
Thank you, Chair. One observation and one question. Observation, picking up what Councillor Wright said, travelling that almost daily now. is the lane control causes a lot of the problems. Drivers are fully aware of which lane goes where, but of course all they do is drive down and then nip in at the last minute to try and get past the queues. That of course does the double effect of both making the queue they're in wait and of course pushing back the queue they want to get in. So it's an absurd thing to do, but of course I guess there's nothing you could do. I have thought a number of times that if you mark the lanes in a way between them that they couldn't cross over, that would help, but it's probably impractical. So that's more of an observation. The second question is picking up what Councillor Wright said, which you didn't really fully answer the question, I think. Is there anything in the budget for you for construction or for national highways to carry out remedial works on the rural lanes? Thanks.
Yeah, so first of all, I absolutely appreciate your frustration with the lane control, and yeah, I don't know exactly what you mean. It is frustrating, and unfortunately, it's down to individual driver behaviour. And as you correctly stated, people do know what they're doing 9 times out of 10, and unfortunately, there is little we can do there. The sort of safety implications of actually segregating lanes, and also there are sometimes when people do need to change lanes and things like that. It can also create the sort of perception of lanes being narrow as well, which can create safety issues. But I do appreciate that, and also our aim is to get those lanes flowing as free as possible, as soon as possible, to kind of negate that. In terms of your second point, so any road or any asset that's maintained by local authorities, so obviously Kent County Council, it's not something we would go and conduct work on, because there's all sorts of implications around maintaining an asset that's not ours. So there are conversations that happen high level between Kent and National Highways in terms of how we can help. But ultimately, they're Kent's assets. They have this statutory responsibility to keep those roads maintained. And I do know that ahead of us implementing our 5-week closure, through our liaison, Kent did go out and fill potholes and do some upkeep on a lot of the local lanes in preparation for our 5-week closure. So I do know they are actively looking at it, and we do have a good relationship, and we do keep in constant contact and pass on queries. But ultimately, they are their assets.
Lovely, thank you, Daniel, and thank you for the update. And yeah, actually look forward to being able to use the flyover and save some time. And I'm sure everyone that uses that junction will be well and truly happy. And like you say, I mean, from Councillor Dendell's comments, if you were to put in lane dividers, how far back up the A249 do you go? Do you go to the top of Detling Hill? Do you go to the M20 roundabout? It's human nature, after all. So, yeah, thank you, Daniel.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. On the point that I'll bring you in a moment, Councillor Harrison. On the point that Councillor Wright made, Alan, are you there and able to make any comment?
Thank you, Chair. To do with the point that Councillor Wright made, we are very much aware of the condition of some of the roads there that was mentioned just a second ago, and other roads as well. There's in particular about half a dozen roads that we continually are potholing, and we would love to say that they're going to be resurfaced in the near future, but I don't know at the moment how that can happen. Probably a question for maybe Simon Jones and his high-level meetings that Daniel referred to. If he is able to do anything to negotiate any money, that would be great. But from what Daniel said, it seems unlikely, but I think that probably it's at that level where that might be resolved.
Thank you, Alan. I've got Councillor Harrison and then Councillor Whiting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is just an observation. On the day that the A249 between, I'm going to say Key Street and Stockbury, but instead of coming down the hill to Key Street, you went over the top from there to Stockbury, that brand new road, within, let me think, 20 minutes of it being open, there was a smash. I just thought I'd mention that because you can do whatever you can to make roads safe. Some of the people in these cars really shouldn't be driving because they're not capable. Just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Whiting, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just picking up that last point about the repairs to the KCC network, as it were, and the damage that's being caused by the diversions of very often heavy traffic onto roads that just aren't built to take it. I did have that same conversation with Mr. Jones, Simon Jones, who's the corporate director in charge of all this at KCC. He did assure me he was having those conversations with National Highways, but I'm more than happy, and I'm sure the other county members on the call and in the meeting would be happy to write to Simon to get his assurance that those conversations are still going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Councillor MacDonald.
Yeah, just a quick one. The project was going to cost 60 million. I'm told it's now going to cost the taxpayers 100 million. It would be a very good goodwill gesture if out of this huge sum of money they will be able to put a little bit of cash into KCC to get these repairs done on the side roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. It was my understanding from the papers that I actually read that it was always going to cost the best part of £100 million anyway. So I'm not sure where the 60 million figure came from. Maybe 20 years ago, but yeah. Yeah. No. Okay. Thank you. Right. So. I just need to ask that members note the update and thank Daniel for his attendance again. All those agree? Thank you. Right, so we move on now to agenda item number 10, highways works being carried out by developers and utility companies, our favourite subject. Right, so I haven't got anyone down, but who's the officer that will be presenting this? Is that you, Alan?
Thank you, Chair. In the absence of anyone from the team that has drafted the report or written the report out this evening, I'm quite happy just to introduce it. As you can see, it is for information only. The last couple of JTB's members have voiced their thoughts on their favourite subject, and they've said that they would like a report that just outlines about the costs of street works and how action can be taken against street works and developers if they don't complete the works quickly enough and the like. So a report has been drafted, as you can see, by the Streetworks team, the manager of the Streetworks team. I don't have anything to add specifically to the report apart from one thing. So if I can draw your attention, there is a misprint on the report, and it's quite an important one. So it talks, if you look on page 35, it talks about overrun charges. So if a piece of work that's been carried out on the carriageway is due to take, I don't know, a week has been agreed as a suitable length of time to carry out that work, and they finish up taking an extra day, 2 days or whatever, on certain roads, there are charges which you can see as laid out in the left-hand column of that table that's there. So, as it mentions there, on the busiest of A roads, for each of the days, there's a charge of £5,000 being late completing that works under the lane rental scheme. Underneath it, it does say these charges can only be applied if the overrun was unavoidable. Of course, that should be if the overrun was avoidable. So if they turn up on site and there's a whole host of things that could go wrong on that site that's completely out of the control of that contractor that's carrying the work out. I don't know, for the sake of the police tell them they need that road space for something else and they stop the working for 2 days or something. So if something is completely out of their control, then they get an extension and they don't have to pay that lane rental charge for those 2 days where they couldn't work. So to just clarify that one line there, I thought was worth doing. But apart from that, if there are questions either the members can talk directly to the person that's read the report, Chris Sear, or if they want to, we can take a list of the questions now, and then we can try and get some answers forwarded to the members at some time in the near future. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Alan. Councillor Whiting, is that a residual hand or is that on this agenda item?
It's the new one on this item, thanks, Chair.
Okay.
It's just to say thank you to the officers for the report. I think it does set out very clearly, in many ways, how the highway authorities' hands are tied by various bits of legislation and by the rights that have been afforded by that legislation to the utility companies. And it's quite, it makes quite grim reading, I think. My only comment would be perhaps to ask, I know that the council, Swale, is very keen to set up this roadworks task force, and I would suggest that we ask the chairman of that task force to put this item on the agenda for their first meeting, so that all the members present at that task force will understand fully the difficulties perhaps KCC are facing, or the tools that are available to KCC to speed works up and to better enable them to better plan the work. So I think there's a bit of good and a bit of bad in the report. I think mostly it seems very bad news, but I do think it's worth sharing with that the members of that task force when it does eventually get to meet, so that they understand, and perhaps even share it with all the parish councils. I think it's a very valuable little document, pointing everything out very clearly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Councillor Dendor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One observation, I think, first again. Yeah, great that there's penalties. Most of the utility companies will just shrug them off. For them not to delay, or for them to go off site when they need to get things done, costs them far, far more than any of these penalties. So they really do shrug them off. I mean, that's more of an observation. I wonder, and I've got an example of this at the moment, I wonder when permits are given, for instance, to developers, and they start working on a road before the start date of their permit, is there any control there, and is there any penalty from them starting before or keeping to the date? And thirdly, again, an example I have at the moment is I presume that the permits assure or try to assure that there's traffic control by those developers. Again, my experience is that's very light, almost not done. So those, I mean, I don't expect Alan to comment on those, but maybe something can take away. Thanks.
Could I come in, Chair?
Yeah, sure.
I think the first question about task force from Councillor Whiting is something that I would be able to do to put that point that's just been made back to whoever from our side is going to be involved in the task force. So I think that's doable. And with regard to Councillor Dender's point, if you look on page 35, top of page 35, you've got a table of fixed penalty charges. One of them is working without a permit, and you've got a full charge here of £500 for working without a permit. If you work in advance of the date that's stated on the permit, it's working without a permit. Thank you.
I've got Councillor MacDonald next, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As somebody who used to work on roads, on page 32, it says that the working hours will be 8 o'clock in the morning until 4:30 in the evening, Monday to Friday. Now, most of us see roadworks. Nobody there. The permit is given out for far too long. To my mind, they should be very, very tight. And yes, in exceptional circumstances, if it's a gas leak or something, they've got to go in and do it, which is fine. No problem at all. But most of us see nationally on the networks, which has nothing to do with us, but also in the local roads, roadworks, which inconveniences everybody, and it doesn't do anything for the pollution either. The contractors seem to be taking the pee, quite frankly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. I've got Councillor Wright next.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd agree with what's been said as regards working in breach of permit conditions. Some of the FPN overrun charges are minuscule. You know, the example given as regards traffic control, or whether it be lights or somebody directing traffic, etc., would cost far more than working in breach of the permit conditions if there was no traffic control there. I would certainly say that these, although I believe it does state that these FPN charges are governed by government, not by Kent County Council, it's probably something that needs to be looked at. I was going to mention reinstatement of the highways following works. It's something that I think, and it doesn't actually say at what state the repair has to be before it gets repaired. It seems a lot of the reinstatement doesn't last a year, let alone 2 years, and they're seem to be given plenty of time to not do the work either. I mean, surely all these works must be on a map, must be geo or satellite positioned. You must know who has done the work, and you know, even with the public reporting all these potholes, these people must be hopefully coming out and doing a proper job and reinstating it. I mean, the state of our roads, you can see that it's not being done, or we're not being hard enough on these utility companies or contractors to come back and look after our roads, particularly once they've dug them up.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. And I'll just take one more and then come back to you, Alan. We've got Councillor Tutt, please.
Chairman, I have had my hand up. I think Councillor White has put his hand up.
That's Mike.
Mike. I'll vouch for that, Chairman.
Yeah, I couldn't actually see a hand up next to your phone.
Bulldog. Bulldog.
Mike Bulldog.
I can't see your hand up either.
No,
he's taken it down.
Perhaps it goes down after a while.
Yeah, okay.
It's set up on my screen, Mike.
Yeah, and mine actually.
Yeah, Councillor Bulldog.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to echo what Councillor White said about the quality of these occasionally happening repairs. We've had Wises Lane up about 6 times, and there's just gouges in the pavement. I think they don't do the repairs because they know they'll be back to dig it all up again. And I think something similar is going on in Bapchild and Tennant. I thought was quite interesting in the report the amount of new building is causing some of these problems, and the age of the infrastructure. Now, the more we keep building on this infrastructure which can't cope, the more we're going to have trouble. Now, this is something we should be feeding through in our local plan, so I hope that we feed that back to the local plan people. The other point, and you know, Councillor Wright's correct, everybody else has spoken on this is correct, these figures, these punishments are minuscule. But I think if the money was to be awarded to the local area, it might have some payback. If you've got a big area like the A2, then yeah, a big area is affected. But if you've got some of the smaller villages, you get about £500-700. At least that's something the village can do with that money. Yeah, if it rolls on 2-3 weeks and you're getting like 5,000-6,000, then that village could probably do some major useful with it. So I'd like to see some consideration of these fines actually going to the locale affected, so that people can see a return for the impact on their lives. And is there a way we can push that, Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. I'll bring... Oh, your hand's gone up twice now, Councillor Baldock. Oh, you've removed it. I will bring you in a moment, Councillor Tuck. Can I just bring you back in first, Alan, because there's quite a lot of technical questions there.
Thank you, Chair. Rather strangely, Councillor Baldock appears twice on my screen, and throughout most of the last 10 minutes, once with a hand up and once without a hand up. I'm not really sure. I think that is a technical issue there that's going on. Punishments, yes, they are central government that dictate what those punishments, as you like to say, the fines, the FPNs or whatever, are, and so yeah, those fines are fixed. Also fixed are the times that are given for reinstatements. So most of the time, the contractor is quite within his rights to go back and reinstate up to 2 years after the hole has been actually initially excavated, as long as when he's finished on the site, he carries out a temporary reinstatement, and it's got to be the same to the level of the existing road, obviously, and of a reasonable standard. But yeah, they are allowed to do a temporary reinstatement first, and then come back later and do the permanent reinstatement at some date in the future. We do try very, very hard to pin anything back on a contractor if we can see that's clearly related to something that they've done in the past. We do have a good system of locating where those works were carried out, and we use that, and we do try and persuade the contractor to come back and carry out the works at his expense. So all of those things are very much things that we do. With regard to what Councillor Baldock said at the last minute or so, it's obviously a really good point about the locality and how the money's distributed. And that's probably going to be one for that project group. The group that's going to be set up is probably something they can look into and see if they can arrange that to allocate the work as he's just suggested. I don't think there's a date for the project group starting, but I'm sure it will be started fairly soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Whiting and both yourself, Alan, you've referred to the task force. You're not talking about the Swale traffic forum, are you?
I think so. Yes, sorry, Chairman. Yeah, I think so. I've looked in the various minutes where it's been referred to previously in other meetings, and it's been called a task force. So, but I think it's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't referring to that task force. On page 34, it's got item 8, update on the investigation of utility company works. I think at the last meeting we were asked for, is there any sort of feedback at all? Well, I think we'd all heard before that Councillor Neil Baker was involved in some work to try and look into the whole business of street works. And it mentions on the second bullet point that the project group has been set up to look at ways to enforce improved performance. And I think that project group was the one that I was referring to a second ago. It may be something that they might take on as one of the many strands of work that they want to take on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not 100% certain where this project group is being set up, but we've got Mr. Oliver here with us. It's KCC one, is it? Oh, so we're not referring to the Swale Traffic Forum then. Well, maybe Councillor Whiting was, but obviously Alan,
yes,
you're not.
If I may, Chairman, for clarity, yes, I was referring to the one that Swale has made a decision to set up. I was referring to that one. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can confirm, as I did to members in the chamber earlier on, that the first meeting of the Swale Traffic Forum is to be held on Tuesday, the 12th of March, from 9:30 via Teams. Councillor Tutt, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to make a couple of points. Reading the bit about reinstatement, I note that not everything is checked. And we'd all love to see everything checked, but we do understand that the problems for KCC over this, but it is good to see that they do check out various developers and they target the one with the worst record. They go on to say that inspections have been 32,000 inspections of the works, and they give us all the information about the cost of the breaches, but nowhere in the report does it tell us how many times they enforce, who gets a penalty notice, how many penalty notice out of those 32,000 inspections have they actually recovered from developers because they haven't done the job properly, etc. There's no information about that at all. So laudable that it is that they're trying to do, or they're looking at it, I would love to see the information about what's actually done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Allen.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there's no way I would know those figures offhand. I can try and get some information that would maybe answer as much as that as could be given quickly, and maybe that might even be added to the minutes of this meeting if I can get it in time. Failing that, if it's a job for this project group, I'm sure at some stage in the future this project group that was mentioned on page 34 will be reporting back to this committee. We'll certainly make sure that that information's in that report. But I'll try and get something sooner and see if we can attach it to the minutes of the meeting that just says the answer to that question that's just been raised.
Thank you, Alan. Councillor Dendell.
Sorry, Chair, can I just thank Alan for that, because obviously he's not in a position.
Yeah, thank you. Did you get that, Alan? Councillor Tutts thanked you for your...
Yeah, I'm sorry, the line broke up, but that's okay. I've got the gist of it. Thank you.
Councillor Dendell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, staying on this reinstatement, I just wonder, maybe Alan can answer this one, if a councillor brings up the fact that a piece of road needs, or thinks a piece of road needs investigation, I presume that it would be followed up. And I have experienced a couple of times, particularly one time, which Councillor Winkles might remember, some years ago, where KCC went in and found that a reinstatement of road was defective, but ended up doing it itself. And I wonder if Ms Blackburn would comment on that. I mean, can we get a utility to come back after a number of years? Thanks.
Thank you. Alan?
After a number of years, it's certainly difficult, and the only way that we have done it in the past is if we have raised at the time or fairly soon after that we suspect there's a problem. And in that situation, we have had them back out the 2-year period, beyond the 2-year period, to come back and reinstate and make good. But that's only because we've raised it shortly after it was initially laid and said we suspect there may be a problem. So there's a situation like that. And in answer to the first part of your question, there have certainly been occasions where we've received an inquiry from somebody, whether it be a councillor or a member of the public. We've sent a highway steward out there within a 2-hour time frame to go and look at something. He's seen that there's an issue. We've raised it with the contractor of the statutory authority, or raised it directly with the statutory authority, and we've not been able to get them there within a period of time that we thought was necessary. So we've seen something that we thought was particularly urgent. We've not been able to get them there. We've got an unsaved problem where they've said we can't get there within that 2-hour window or something, and we've actually made it good ourselves. We do have a duty of care, and if we see something that we think is dangerous and really can't wait until they're there, we would do it and then attempt to recharge on it. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Alan. I see no more hands. So I ask members to note the report. Thank you, members, and thank you for that, Alan. So we move on now to agenda item number 11, update on from KCC on the Grovehurst roundabout. I take it, would that be you, Richard?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead then, please.
Okay. Right. Despite the weather, which has been atrocious over the last few months, as we're all aware, the contractor Jacksons have been making good progress on site. The piled foundations for the new bridge have all now been completed. They are now breaking down the tops of the piles and preparing the supporting walls, the abutments, for the next phase of the construction as it built out of the ground. Works are continuing off the highway to construct all the new embankments, install the drainage and create new ponds. Very recently, Southern Water and Southern Gas have both started to attend site to relocate their mains. And again, most of these have been off-site. There have been some temporary traffic management on Grovehurst Road North on the road into Iwade. There's a weekend closure due this particular weekend. I think it's this weekend coming up, which is at Swale Way. This is to enable us to get some of the utility works across the road. We'd like to have been able to do it in two halves, but it needs to be done in one big hit, and the road's not wide enough to get in and do it in two halves. So there is this closure for this weekend. With regard to progress and programme, Jackson's have issued a revised programme. We've had a few problems with Southern Water, all the utilities. When we were planning the works, they gave us a certain lead-in time and duration for doing the work. Once we've actually given them money to come and do the work on site, they've demanded an awful lot longer window. So we're in a position where we're having to rework the programme to accommodate all the utility works. And that has been a little bit of a challenge for Jackson's. But we're hoping that we'll have that programme available this week. Then my team will have a look at that to assess that to contract compliance, and then we'll have a better idea of what future traffic management we're going to need in the coming months. But for the moment, it is purely continuing with the road closure, the lane closure on the A249, and the off-peak work that we do around the KCC network. I think the other particular question, I suppose, is that the current date for completion has slipped. We still need the programme to confirm it, but we're expecting our programme for completion, again, as Daniel said earlier, the contract completion in February, but we would like to think that the majority of the roads will be open before that, before the original Christmas deadline. I suppose one of the issues that we're aware of is the Network Rail proposed closures of Kings Ferry Crossing. This is very unfortunate. It's not really given us an opportunity to plan our works with theirs. They're going to be wanting to close the crossing when I've got the lane closures on the A249, and because of the status of where we are with constructing of the bridge, I'm not going to be in a position where I can get traffic management off of the A249. So we're working with the Streetworks team and Network Rail, the DBFO and National Highways to look at what they're doing and how they're doing it, and to minimise disruption wherever possible. But unfortunately, I'm not in a position where I can do too much to improve that scenario by taking the traffic off the A249. The other particular quick comment is Jackson's had a drop-in session on site a couple of weeks ago. And I think that was attended by some of the members from this JTB I'm aware of. There is another drop-in session planned for the 25th of March between 12 and 1:30. So if anyone is interested in coming in and getting a bit more detail, then please let me know, and we'll make sure you get a formal invite, and that people in there. It's drop-in, so you shouldn't need to invite, but it's just helpful if you can let us know. Whilst on here, I'll give you a very quick update on Key Street, because Key Street is also a part of the works that we're delivering as the Swale HIP schemes. We've been out on site at Key Street doing some advanced site clearance before the breeding birds get going. So we were out there last week doing some works at the bottom of Swale Way and around Kiko Hill. And this week we're on site doing some site clearance down the verge on Chestnut Street. These are being done in off-peak times. So that's where we're currently going there. With regard to Key Street, we're very much waiting for the M2 Junction 5 works to get completed, and there are other developer works planned on Chestnut Street. So we're breaking it down into two phases where we can do some works on Key Street starting hopefully in July, but being flexible on that. And we wouldn't be in a position until we can start any works on the Chestnut Street element, which enables us to do the new slip road until October, allowing for both M2 Junction 5 and the developers that have both got works to do along Chestnut Street. And those works are all due to be completed by spring 25. So that's a very quick update for you. I'm more than happy to take some questions.
Lovely, thank you, Richard. I'll got Councillor Baldock first.
Thank you. Good to hear that there is work progressing on the Key Street roundabout. That is, we're juggling between those two pieces of work and of Chestnut Street is delicate. Always good to hear that the officers are aware of it and on top of it. It is disappointing that when they shut the bridge, we're not going to be able to lay off the works those weekends. I think that is something that is going to be problematic for that period. But yeah, so we're looking at a Key Street finish date, spring 25. Is that correct?
That's currently where we're at. M2 Junction 5 is a challenge, and they're saying midsummer. If they slip, then I know that my discussions with our Streetworks team will be that I will need to delay my start. So I'm fully aware that I will not be starting until M2 Junction 5 is no longer using Chestnut Street as a major diversion route. Not that it's meant to be using it as a major diversion route now, but if anything, if there is an incident, that's where it heads.
Lovely. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Thank you, Richard. Councillor Dendor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Richard, the closure this weekend of Swale Way, I think you know where I'm coming from. Is the signage going to be okay? As you know, the minute it's closed, there's going to be a tremendous surge of traffic through Kempsey Fields to Lloyd or back from Lloyd. Presumably it's going to be closed after that, further up from that. But signage is my worry. Stopping people coming from Eurolink onto Swale Way itself, for instance.
The detail of that is I'm not fully clear. It's obviously we've been sharing the information between our contractors that have put together the proposals. What I'll do is dig that information out, and I'll share a copy with you if you're happy to see that, just so you can get a feel of what the diversion route and what signing is actually planned on that particular route.
Yeah, I think sooner rather than later, if possible, so I can warn the Kempsey Field residents what to expect.
I will task myself with getting that to you tomorrow, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dendor. I see your face on the screen, Councillor Whiting. Did you want to come in?
No, I didn't. Apologies, Chairman. I was just having trouble. I got disconnected and reconnected with the camera on. But while I've got the floor, if I may, just like to thank Richard for his comments. There is a lot of anxiety on Sheppey. I'll put it as strongly as that, about the closure of the Kingsway Bridge, combined with the works that are going on at Grovehurst, and the knock-on effect via the bobbing roundabout in particular. Not just for the traffic that is trying to get into Sittingbourne, of course, but it would be very helpful if the KCC Streetworks team could take a real close look at all of the works that are planned around the Sittingbourne area, particularly A2, which in a way will assist those that are trying to get from Sheppey into Sittingbourne, particularly in the rush hour, to save them huge hold-ups again at Key Street, for example, when the A2 into Sittingbourne is closed. And I'm sure the members around the table are all aware of those difficulties. I get that we can't mitigate everything, but as much work as can be done in advance of those closures would be. We need to be seen to be doing everything we possibly can, I think. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Did you want to respond to that, Richard?
Well, I'm not Streetworks, but I deal very closely with the Streetworks team, fully aware of all the sensitivities. I'm sure that they will be ensuring that they're aware of all the problems that are created, and yeah, our hands have been tied with the urgency of this particular works and how recently it's come in. But they will be issuing permits, and I'm sure they will be looking at all other permits in and around the area to manage it as best that they are able with the powers that they have.
Thank you, members, and thank you once again, Richard. So we now move on to agenda item 12, the Faversham Crosstown Walking Route Active Travel Scheme. I believe that will be you, Abe? It's Seb, is it? Seb, over to you.
Hi there. Would it be possible if I could share my screen? It might just make explaining things a bit easier.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sure. Please do that.
Right. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. So yeah, with regards to the Faversham walking across town, walking and wheeling route, as I'm sure you know, a bid was submitted to Active Travel England last year, and we were successful. It was granted for £995,000 for the project. The money itself was from Active Travel England to provide better provision for walking and walking routes across town. So this money is kind of ring fenced for the Active Travel improvement schemes, so it can't really be used on existing budgets in terms of maintenance and resurfacing. So the scheme itself is being delivered in partnership with obviously Swale Borough Council, Faversham Town Council and KCC. So what have we got here? So the scheme provides highway improvements from east to west, starting at Lower Road, or whichever end you want to start at Lower Road, working through to South Road, going along Cross Lane to Gatefield Lane, and then going through the back roads before going into the recreational ground here. The idea is to make some junction enhancements to make it easier for pedestrians to cross the road, especially more vulnerable users or users that may want greater priority for pedestrians as they're walking along it. A public exhibition was taking place in November last year, and following the feedback, we've been beavering away, really trying to get a bit more design, a bit more backing on it, to see how we can make this work. So I just got to quickly briefly run through. I'm breaking that up into 3 phases. So phase 1, we're hoping to start in sort of April to May time, probably more likely to be May, and that will involve the sort of the junctions at Tanner Street, South Road, all the way along Lower Road, where we're doing sort of courtesy crossings, as it were, to just make improvements for pedestrians. We've got the William Street there with Park Road, and the William Street with St John's Road. So that's kind of sort of the phase 1 element. It's more to do with providing like level pavements and safe places to cross, just to try and encourage more users to do the walk-in side of things. In phase 2, now phase 2 is a little bit more detailed, so we're hoping that will follow on after phase 1, and this element will involve a series of traffic regulations orders to make these ones happen. So at the moment, we're looking at going out for TRO in the next few weeks. Traffic regulation orders have advertised for the next 2 weeks. That will run for about 4 to 5 weeks. And then hopefully I could bring this back to the next JTB as to where we're going on that. But the specific works is around the lower road, Ospringe Road, where we're looking at having to make turning movements easier around here. Talking about taking some parking out on the southern side here at Napleton Road, South Road, in order to get the zebra crossing in and allow for bus movers to go into Napleton Road. We're also having a look at seeing how we'd have to extend some of the yellow lines along there as well. On Bank Street, it's fairly minimal, but it's really providing a raised crossing at this point to probably get into the parking where the leisure centre is. And on Newton Road, again, it's a zebra crossing configuration, and the zigzags means you're having to provide better visibility. So that's kind of what's coming up with the phase 2. And then in the phase 3 really is whatever we got left with the money. So I'm hoping that phase 2 will, depending on the outcome of the TROs, and if we can progress that, then that'll probably be going into sort of the summer months, what we can call sort of least disruption, when we start to build the stuff. And then the phase 3 will be kind of anything that's left over. If we've got some money left in the pot, then we're looking at potentially putting some more traffic calming measures to look to build into the existing 20 miles per hour on Lower Road, and looking where we might be able to incorporate some of these other elements as well. So yeah, that's it. I think the key thing for me really is we will be providing updates. We will be updating this website at the top here. So that's on the Kent website, and so we'll be updating as we go along. So when we get the drawings and they are sort of approved and we're going ahead with them, we'll put them on there, and we will update the program on there as well, so that it keep you up to date with things. If you want to have a look at the exhibition drawings, the designs might have changed slightly from those exhibition drawings, but it gives you a better visual representation, and that's on the Faversham Town Council website. So yeah, so if there's any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Saunders, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I wanted to make a few comments, really. I think, firstly, to start off by thanking Seb for the degree of involvement that KCC officers have had with the Town Council. I mean, it does feel like we've been having a dialogue. It's been a fairly robust dialogue at times, but I think we're getting to a scheme which will really help pedestrians and wheelchair users move around safely and have a pleasanter experience. I also feel that it will, some elements of the scheme will really slow traffic and enhance the 20 mile an hour town-wide scheme that we've got. And some of the later things we've been discussing will actually enhance the physical environment. I think this is an important scheme for the rest of the borough, not just for Faversham, because if we can make it a success when a number of other active travel schemes have really struggled, I think it will be give KCC a good message that there's public support and political will to develop active travel schemes in the borough. In terms of what you said in your presentation, Seb, I think there are strong arguments for work to slow traffic in Lower Road. It is still a road where vehicles drive well over the 20 mile an hour limit, and I think there would be likely to be public support for that. So I hope it's something that will be looked at. The other thing that you touched on was parking. I mean, I'm accepting that in order to make some of these changes, there do have to be some diminution of parking. But I think the more that can be limited, and the more there can be some mitigation for any loss of parking, the better. Because I think it's now, the one thing that perhaps could go wrong with the scheme as it goes through the traffic order stage. So, but thank you for the work you've put in so far.
Thank you. Councillor Gould, please.
Thank you. Is the crossing at Newton Road planned to be a raised crossing, or is that just going to be flat? And there was also a purple dot for phase 2 on your map, sort of off the main route. So just wondering what that one was.
The crossing at, sorry, did you say which road? Sorry,
Newton Road.
Newton Road. Yes, it's looking at being a raised crossing. It's kind of like a tabletop one to slow vehicles down on the approach of that. And the other one that is sort of a skewer to off the map, slightly off of that main route, is providing some extra facilities, crossing facilities at. The name of the road has eluded me. Sorry, bear with me.
It looks like the mall.
Solomon's Lane. Solomon's
Oh,
Lane.
right.
So Solomon's Lane, it's just trying to provide some build-ups there. But again, it's not that one's not like a zebra or anything. It's just trying to provide a bit more build-ups, so it's a shorter distance to cross, as it were.
Lovely, thank you. Got Councillor Hook. We can't hear you, Anthony, if you're trying to get in.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now, loud and clear.
Yes, yeah. I agree entirely with what Julian said. A big thanks to the officers, because this has been a long time coming. A lot of work has gone into it. And there's real massive public excitement in Faversham about this. People know about it and are pleased about it, because Faversham is a town where people already walk and cycle quite a lot and want to do that more. And this will deal with some of the spots where it's a bit tricky to feel safe when you're doing that. And in due course, there's also a north to south route in the pipeline. It makes sense to start east-west, because actually, as you look on the map, Faversham is kind of oblong shaped. It is longer on the east-west axis than it is on the north-south axis. I think a lot of people will want to go on and make comments through the consultation. One thing I've wondered about, and I don't know if the officer can comment on, whether there's any opportunity to add more trees to provide shade on the walking route, because something I've noticed the last couple of summers, which is, we all know, been extremely hot. If you walk from, say, the edge of town to the centre of the town, there's not a lot of shade cover, and I'm wondering if we can plant more trees in parts of the route, so that after a couple of years those trees have grown, people don't have to walk as much in the direct sun as they do at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Seb?
Yep. So we did have a look at seeing where we can martin it up, and of course things like suds and bit of trees make everything a more pleasant and visual route to walk. It's the issue that we got here is we're very confined in terms of the existing road space and what we've got there and what we're trying to make allowance for. There may be some small opportunities on the lower road element, but the rest of it seems very tight to be able to do that. But we will keep looking as we get a bit more into the detailed design, seeing where there are opportunities, but we are a little bit limited, unfortunately.
Lovely.
So, thanks very much, Seb. I just appreciate that comment, and yeah, appreciate it's a detailed point I have to look at, but if it can be kept in mind, I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. I see no more hands, so can I ask members to note the report? And thank you very much for your report, Seb, and the answers to the questions.
Thank you.
So we now move on to agenda item 13, Highway Works Programme. Is that you, Alan, or?
I can do. Thanks, Chairman. There's nothing for me to add. It's the standard works programme that we have at each of these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got one question. It's on page 50, St Michael's Road junction with Crown Key Lane. It says the traffic light rephasing due to be implemented spring of this year. Do you have any information as to regards whether that rephasing is going to include a dedicated right turn indicator on the lights?
Sorry, I don't know the layout of it, the final layout of it. I'll have to ask a question and get somebody to come back to you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wright first, then Councillor Whiting and Councillor Dendor.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions, and if Alan hasn't got the answers, then he can come back to me at a later time. High Street Sitting Wall, maintenance of various ramps to be designed and programmed. I presume they're going to be tarmacked, are they, rather than the conservation area block paving? I think that's what we discussed last time. Has that changed? I know there was some pushback from Swale Borough Council, although when it's bricks and cars keep on going over the humps all the time, they don't last very long. That's question one. And on the drainage, it would be very remiss of me if I did not ask where College Road flooding is. It's a pond that occurs every time. There is something seriously wrong with the drainage there, and it needs to be investigated seriously. I get fed up with residents contacting me. They've been constantly contacting me all the time. It needs to be on a drainage repairs and improvements programme. I'd like to see it on there, please. And obviously we're getting some extra money from central government. It's been announced. How much of it is being spent in Swale? Thank you.
I can echo the sentiment of College Road, because you're not the only one that gets the emails, Councillor Wright. Alan?
Thank you, Chair. So, College Road, I've got a note, and we'll discuss that with the drainage team to make sure they are aware and they are doing something about. Blocks, the granite blocks being changed to tarmac, that was, as suggested before, as to the best of my knowledge, that is still the intention to do that. So, I don't think there's any change there. Central government, yes, we have had discussions about a pothole blitz. As you know, each year we have money which is a jointly funded project by central government and topped up by KCC, and the pothole blitz program we carry out during the summer and autumn of each year, and we've been carrying that out for a good 6-7 years now, something like that. The latest one is receiving central government money. We don't know the full extent at the moment. So we've got a provisional sum that's been allocated to it for Swale area of around about 380k. And we are currently working on sites that will be carried out using that 380k. So they are not resurfacing sites. They are small-ish works of potholing and patching. So you can have some quite reasonable sized patches there, but it's not total resurfacing of any roads. So as an initial amount of 380k, we're hoping for more further as we move into the new financial year. But for initially, that will certainly get us started, and that money is money that we're currently allocating. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Whiting next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just have two quick comments on pages 56 and 57. The first one on page 56, which is item 3316 about the crescent. I have previously raised this as a concern, the proposed closure of the crescent onto the traffic lights at halfway and the diversion of the traffic via South Down Road and Queenborough Road, which is patently unfit to take that extra traffic as it stands. And my question really, and perhaps, I mean, I'm happy for Alan to come back to me, but whether the TRO for that work has actually been done and signed off and agreed. I don't believe it has, and I do expect when we go out to formal consultation on this, there'd be sufficient objections to seriously reconsider the decision that was taken by a previous cabinet member, David Brazier, to go ahead with these works. I think they're the wrong works and they shouldn't be taking place. But an update on that from Alan would be really helpful at some point. On page 57, on 4323, it says developer works at Scoffles, the junction of Scoffles Road and Elm Road. I've had complaints from residents that the curbstones at that junction are far too far out into the road and they have to avoid them by going onto the right-hand lane of the road down Scoffles to avoid the curbstones. Dangerous. And I just wonder, when somebody goes to next inspect those particular works, somebody could have a look more closely at that. And it may be that the curbstones have been placed in the wrong place. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Did you want to come back on that now, Alan?
No, I think I've got both of those and I'll try and get some sort of answers on those. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dendor.
Have you got me this time, Chair?
I have indeed, Councillor Baldock. You are on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a general comment on the developer-funded works, if I may, that Alan might be able to help with. The question is simple, is how out of date is this report? I've got a couple of examples here. Eurolink Way, Sittingbourne, 3084, mentions a Puffet crossing, which has actually been installed for quite some considerable time, a bellmouth that's been there for quite some considerable time, and I wonder why it's showing, according to the colour legend, as significant works outstanding. And unless there's something I'm not realising, that is way out of date. Another example is on, sorry, that was page 53. On page 59, 3461, former Regis Medical Centre, it mentions the change of use from temporary doctor's surgery to, over the page, to a restaurant, cafe in Hoffer. Well, I think we all know that Greg's has been there for how long now? And also a road, an access into Milton Keynes Country Park, which is also there been for on. So it's a general question really of when is this updated and why is it so out of date? And then a more specific question on 3473, a new Bellmouth access into a development at Church Road. This is a much more recent one. It says works commencement to be confirmed, when in fact they've already confirmed it some time ago. And in fact they're making a total hash of it. And the question really was for the street works earlier on, but why are we not managing, or why are we not asking the developer to properly manage traffic? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dendor. Alan?
Again, all noted, thank you. Yeah, apologise. Those reports are supposed to be checked and amended for each JTB. So if some things there are on there that clearly have been changed, then obviously that's incorrect and we need to change that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor MacDonald.
Yes, I've got one or two. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. One of them is the on page 43, the Kingsferry Bridge, the surface actually requiring a proper permanent repair. Now, unfortunately, they're replacing the steel hawsers, and of course the bridge is right up in the air. It isn't on the ground, which would have been an absolutely ideal time to actually do that work. But during the week's closure, which I understand is happening, it's replacing the steel hawsers, which have started delaminating. So could the patchwork, the permanent repair be undertaken at the end of the job before the bridge is reopened? That's one question. The other one is on potholes I was very much in favour of find and fix because that saves an awful lot of people going and inspecting and pricing and all the rest of it. I think a small team, find and fix, frankly, is the way forward. So maybe someone could think about that in the future. Sorry about this. I've got, on page 57, the Audis, it carries through actually. The old A250 Sheppey Road, which runs at the back of all this development, I think planners or maybe KCC were a bit slow in coming forward because they should have got the developers to put a proper walkway and cycleway. We see people walking along that road now. That's the one between Cowsted Corner and, going towards Queenborough Corner. It jolly well should have a complete footpath and cycleway, frankly, also to serve the new Aldi shop. Again, slips, Scockles Road, footpaths. Scockles Road is in a right pickle, and I think we need to tighten up quite a bit. And the same in Chequers Road. I've been on about some of the work that was done there to provide a footpath was excellent by one of the developers. The other ones have got away with it, frankly, and I think someone needs to lean on a few of these developers, to make sure that the footpath is completed going up towards Chequers. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Alan?
Thank you, Chair. I've taken quite a few notes there about concerns. One of the things that you did mention, obviously there, Councillor McDonald, was Kingsferry Bridge and the resurfacing. I don't have a date yet as to when that might be resurfaced. There's clearly a lot of a considerable area was resurfaced in mastic, but it is only a patch repair. It's not a resurfacing, which is what's required. And there, I can confirm there are some really very high-level talks going on between KCC and Railtrack about how that bridge can be resurfaced in the near future. But I'm not party. I don't know a date at the moment when that might happen. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got in order Councillor Saunders, Councillor Wright, Councillor Baldock and Councillor Tutt. So Councillor Saunders, please.
Yeah, it's just with reference on page 50 to scheme 2122 Dark Hill. I'm just wondering, Alan, whether there's any way of resolving this ongoing problem of the contractor not being able to do the work, assuming it hasn't been resolved in the last couple of days. Otherwise, it feels like it could go on for forever.
Thank you. Did you want to take a couple more, Alan, and then come back, or do them individually?
Probably best to take them a couple at a time. I don't have an answer to the Councillor Saunders one anyway, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we've got Councillor Wright next. No, we then have Councillor Baldock.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can indeed.
Excellent. Really concerned about what I heard right at the beginning, the idea that you can repair these cobbled streets or bits of cobbling with black tarmac. That looks hideous. These are normally in conservation areas. Sittingbourne High Street is a conservation area. To repair brick work with just a lump of black tarmac, that's going to encourage, that just sends out a message. We don't care about the state of our street. We don't care about the state of our town. It just encourages bad behaviour. So I would absolutely resist any movement down the process whereby we can be saying just put black tarmac down instead of bricks, or black tarmac down instead of stones. Absolutely not. And if that is seriously what is being suggested, we need to kick back against that, because that goes against every principle of conservation.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Councillor Tutt.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just start with a plea that when we go through these, can we go page by page? Because it's quite difficult when somebody shouts out a reference number and you've got to flick through and try and find that reference number, or go through to page 59 and back to page whatever. Just makes it easier to do them one at a time. Just a couple of quick points. On page 46, Selling Road, flooding affecting beneath the railway bridge. That will be about the 5th time it's been done. Pumps have gone in. I was told by a local councillor in Selling that over £100,000 was spent trying to resolve that. It's still there, it still floods, and it needs a proper job doing. Moving forward, there is one point in here where, yet again, they spelt Hernhill with an E, and that will upset the locals because it's no E in Hernhill. And like most of the members here, I do find it very difficult when so many of these things are out of date and out of time, and how long they should take, and they take much longer. There's one in Dunkirk that's mentioned about waiting for a 30-mile, 40-mile-an-hour sign that we paid for with a HIP. It was meant to be finished by the 25th of February, and I know we've been told it would be later, but it shouldn't be. And it was planned work from September, October last year. So, just points of reference, please, Gov. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I have to agree with Councillor Baldock on the replacing or repairing stone with stone. Referring to Sittingbourne High Street, I can't remember the name of the officer I spoke to way back last year. The subsidence on the speed ramps or crossing ramps, whatever you like to call them, in Sittingbourne High Street, as I understood it at the time, was supposed to be started in October last year and finished by the end of November. To the best of my knowledge, they haven't actually been started yet. So could you comment on why they haven't been started yet, and are they going to be repaired like for like, or are we just going to get lumps of tarmac? Because if we're going to get lumps of tarmac, like Councillor Baldock, I shall be fighting back against that. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Chair. I can't comment on the delay in the process of putting them in, but I know the team that are working on that, and I will also pass your comments from both yourself and Councillor Baldock about the choice of materials, and I'll try and get somebody from those teams to get in contact and explain what the latest is on them in terms of design.
Thank you. And the other points that were made?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know that one either. Dunkirk, waiting for the speed limit and why that's been deferred. I can see that it has been deferred, but I don't know the answer to why it's been deferred or delayed. Sorry.
Lovely, thanks, Alan. Right, so we note the report on agenda item 13. Thank you, members. And just agenda item 14 then, the progress update. Members, anything on these?
Yeah, it's just on the first item. I mean, this has been here for over 12 months, and I think there's always been a blank space on the next actions. It would be quite helpful if there was some kind of public statement on where the Faversham pedestrianisation scheme have got to.
Thank you. Alan, do you have any update on that?
Don't, unless Seb is still here, but I can't see him on the list. He may have had something, but I can't see him on the list, so I'll try and ensure that, well, I've put a note on there to say that at the next of these meetings we'll make sure there is some sort of statement that explains where we are.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, very quick one, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. the bollards being removed from James Street, if they're nice bollards, can we use them somewhere in Sheerness? Because there are areas that it would enhance, rather than all the smashed railings at the car park at the seafront, which has just had a superb job done of tarmacking and things. The railings look absolutely appalling, and it'd be much nicer if we could use some of the bollards. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Harrison.
I might think, Mr. Chairman, that if there are any whole bollards left in James Street, they might be used to replace the squares of tarmac where they've come out in the other areas. This was all paid for out of GIA, Sheerness, Marine Town. And if there's anything surplus, that it should go back to the area, because KCC have said when Chelsea tractors smash them to pieces, we're not replacing them. So if there are any whole ones, they could well be utilised in that GIA area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I take it, Alan, you've made note of Councillor Harrison's comments.
I have made notes, and I don't know the answer to where those bollards would actually what happens as part of the contract. To the best of my knowledge, it is going to be KCC that ultimately take them out. I think that they were funded by SBC, but actually will be taken out by KCC. We always, if we have something that's reusable, whether it's paving or bollards or whatever, we always, if it's whole and it's good, it comes back to the depot, it sits in the corner and it waits its turn for reuse. So yes, they certainly will be reused if they are of any use. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much, Alan. Right, so any more speakers on agenda item 14, so we note the report? Thank you, members. Thank you to the officers and members online, and to Mr Knowles and the other officers in attendance. Personally, thank you to all members in attendance this evening. Just like to say this will be my last meeting as chairman of this auspicious body for the time being, maybe, and subject to nomination and confirmation, your chairman for the next Joint Transportation Board meeting will be County Councillor John Wright. So I'd like to thank all members for their attendance and their candour over the last year. The date of the next meeting provisionally, as I understand, is the 8th of July. So in saying that, I close the meeting at 19:37. Thank you, members.